Hi, Vani. A very, very warm welcome. Lovely to talk to you today once
Yeah, nice
again
seeing you after a long time.
after a long
Yeah.
time.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, yes.
So, would you like to tell our followers who we are at SWMRT, just in case we have some new joinees today? In the meantime, I'm just
Sure.
letting all our guests in.
Hello, Meenakshi.
Hello, Vani ma'am. I'm a big fan of yours.
Oh, how sweet. Thank you. Yeah, welcome to this live. And yeah, hello, everyone, and welcome to this SWMRT live session. Hi, Shruti.
Hi,
Hi,
nice to see
Shruti.
you. Hi,
Nice
hi.
to see you too. So, we are here. Shalini will do all the interactions. Thank you.
Oh, very, very warm welcome, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on this wonderful Insta Live and being on the dot on time. Shruti, it's so good to connect with you. And so, in order of seniority, I think, or the person who joined first, allow me to please warmly welcome our dear friend Vani first. But before that, to those of you joining us at SWMRT handle, a quick introduction to who we are. Solid Waste Management Roundtable is a collective of SWM practitioners working since 2009 for adopting of sustainable waste management practices by citizens and municipalities for improving public health, clean air, water, safe food, and healthy soil, and inclusive livelihoods. That's who we are. And what we are going to be doing today, before that, a quick introduction. Vani needs no introduction, but I will introduce. Vani Murthy is an avid composter, urban farmer, sustainability practitioner, citizen leader of Bengaluru. Vani is one of the founding members of SWMRT, and We Care for Malleshwaram. She is an expert in different kinds of home composting methods. Over the years, she has tested several prototypes and composting solutions before they go on to the market rollout. Vani's work has simultaneously nurtured several entrepreneurs in sustainability sector and driven adoption of composting solutions across the country. Now, Vani has been a major influencer and she has won many awards. But I would like to bring your attention to the latest. She's been a TEDx speaker on the very many platforms. But the last one, we are so very proud of what the National Geographic reached out to. So they announced the launch of one of its kind initiative titled One for Change on Earth Day. Through this initiative, the National Geographic showcased a series of short films spotlighting the exceptional stories of change makers who have taken extraordinary steps to make our world a better place. Vani Murthy was selected as one of the change makers for her role in spreading awareness about the importance of composting. Her video on their channel has reached 1 million viewers. And her Vani's followers on Insta are at the moment at 2,74,275. Maybe it's changed. I have day before yesterday's data. I'm sorry, little outdated. So warm welcome to you, Vani. Wonderful to have
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Shalini.
Most welcome. Shruti, I'm meeting you for the first time, and it's such a pleasure after having read about your introductions. Allow me to introduce you next, Shruti Shibulal. Shruti is the CEO and director of Tamra Leisure Experiences. Shruti strives to create thoughtful business models that harmonize people, planet, and profit. Under her value-driven leadership, Tamra Leisure has grown to become synonymous with responsible tourism. The organization's ecosystem of sustainable initiatives integrate climate-resilient policies, including green building practices, wildlife preservation, and optimized use of resources, among other factors. Tamra's culture and operations also combine to address three key arenas that stand especially close to Shruti's personal vision: gender parity, human capital building, and meaningful job creation to uplift local economies. Tamra operates 3 distinct hotel brands in South India as well as independent business hotels in Germany. Shruti was named, and we'll come back to this while in one of our question rounds. Shruti was named a young global leader of the World Economic Forum in 2017 and serves as a co-lead on the Responsible Destinations work stream of the Global Future Council for Sustainable Tourism. She serves as a trustee for all foundations of the Sribulal family, and she is also a trustee with WEP, Women's Education Project. And something really wonderful is the Shruti launched Satya, a hospitality skilling program, which enables young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to become employable with the restaurant and hotel community. So welcome, Shruti.
Thank you so
Lovely
much.
to have you. Lovely to have you on this Insta Live. Moving on to yet another dear friend, Meenakshi. Meenakshi Gupta. She is, of course, if you're on Instagram, you cannot but not follow Meenakshi. She is a freelance travel writer, blogger, digital marketer, and destination marketing and promotion representative. Current role, she is a web content manager with Karnataka Tourism. In her career, she started as a professor of marketing, advertising, branding in reputed business school. For over 22 years, she's got experience, 15 of which is in tourism industry as a marketing professional, promoting destinations and travel and tourism events. She has also worked with representing Singapore Tourism Board for 3 years in south of India. What we are going to be focusing today, in 2018, she decided to get with the times and started blogging on her travel food experiences at a very young age of 50. As a beginner, it also inspired her to share her trekking stories and on tanhadil.in, which today has about close to 15,000 followers on Instagram. Another wonderful fact, she started trekking at the age of 47 with ailments like asthma, high blood pressure, knee issues, and thyroid. She says, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Starting her day treks, she did a snow Himalayan summit at 12,500 feet, and last year an Everest based camp at 17,500 feet this year. So Meenakshi, wonderful and a very, very warm welcome to you on this wonderful platform.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shalini.
Okay, so now what's today's session about? It's all about World Tourism Day. As we are moving closer to celebrating World Tourism Day, I would like to welcome all of you. We have close to 90 followers on this, and we are more and more are joining in. I would like to welcome you on Insta Live. I believe all of us have stories, and we are stories, and it's important to share ours so that we can empower people to start theirs, especially a sustainable one. Various parties have taken into account many steps to realize sustainable tourism development. The WTO has formulated at least 12 main goals for sustainable tourism development, including economic viability, local prosperity, employment, quality, social equity, visitor fulfillment, local control, community well-being, cultural richness, physical integrity, biological diversity, resource efficiency, and environment purity. These are all big, big words, all extremely meaningful words. However, at SWMRT, all of us are practitioners and have worked on the ground with waste to understand the dynamics and the impact it has on communities. So all of us have got our hands dirty. So today we have decided to focus on just one aspect throughout our conversation today, the impact of single-use disposables in tourism. So before we come to that, I am starting my round to all of you. My first question is, what is sustainable tourism from your lens, and why do you think it is important? So since Meenakshi, I introduced you last, would you like to take that one first?
Okay, thank you so much, Shalini, for inviting me on this platform, such a beautiful platform, and pleasure to be here. So, as you said, sustainable tourism, responsible tourism, big, big words we talk about in, sitting in AC rooms. But I think it starts within ourselves. I need to start. When I say I need to start myself, everyone should say that I have to start myself. I can't expect government or other agencies to, help us in uh, making this as a big word or making this as a globally rethink tourism or some tourism organizations working towards it. It is me or I have to start with this. I'll just give you a small example. Today I went for a trek and we went to some falls. The approach to the falls was very dirty. The falls were so beautiful. I can't tell you. I have never heard, just because we were Googling and we lost our way. We accidentally reached to these falls, and the falls were very, very beautiful. There were very few people, but access to the falls were extremely filthy. All over the places, the bottles, the plastic bottles, the plastic packets, the chips packets. I think it's our responsibility. When I travel, I make sure that I do not litter anywhere, and wherever we go, as a group also, we do not litter. We make sure whether we eat or not eat, but we are not going to litter anywhere. In fact, last trek also, even some travel also, we were entering into the jungle, and before that kids wanted to take a break and they wanted to eat something, because we told them that when we are crossing the jungle, we will not give you anything to eat even when you are in the car, because we don't know what animals, how they behave, and we just took a break under the tree, and you won't believe we found some 100 beer bottles there, more than 100. And we all were so zapped, and we were so shocked to see that anybody who is going to a luxury resort crossing through jungle, they would have stopped there. Not just people who are uneducated or do not have the knowledge or do not have the exposure about responsible tourism or sustainable tourism. They are these people. They are educated people. They know how to travel. They know how to live in, in luxury resorts. These are the people, those who can afford a beer bottle of 200 rupees. Are they supposed to leave it there under the tree? My only
I can
question is to
understand.
these people, right? So you need to start
Right.
from yourself. Please, please, please do not litter anywhere. Bring your trash bag. Be responsible. So many times people tell me, oh, you wipe your sweat with the cloth, the napkin. You're still using that. Gone are the days, there are wet wipes I have never used wet wipes in my life. Never.
Thank
So
you. Thank
these
you,
are the small
Meenakshi.
things, yes.
Thank you. So, Shruti, from your lens, what is sustainable tourism to you, and why do you think it is important?
So it's a big question for me, coming from an organization where this is really our primary focus. So sustainability at its core, like, what does it mean? It means that we're preserving what we have for future generations. So what is, so then you look at what is gifted to you. So when we talk about hotels, the land is gifted to us. The environment in which it exists is gifted to us, right? And it's our responsibility to make sure that over the years that we develop on it, that we operate on it, and all the time that we have guests on it, that the burden that we place is not so much that it is not preserved for future generations. So we look at it in a way which is sustainable. There's also this idea of regenerative tourism, which is to leave it better than it was. These are all sort of the concepts that we grapple with constantly. The way that we look at it is that, you have to consider all of these different aspects, right? When you bring any sort of an enterprise into a destination, tourism being that enterprise in many different facets, tourism gives enormous employment to people. So there's a huge benefit to bringing tourism into these places. But what is the impact that we have on the community and on the environment? And that, like, looking at all of those different facets, keeping a balance, that is what sustainable tourism really is for us. It also means, like Meenakshi mentioned, it is about education, right? So we have to educate, of course, the guests who are coming into those places. We also have to educate our staff, and they need to understand, why is it that it's important? Why is it that we do this the way that we do? The hotel industry, which is, where I exist, we typically, traditionally, are quite wasteful. And so we're questioning that. At Tamara, we question that and say, why does it need to be like that? We can look at this, we can approach this completely differently. There are so many ways in which we can do this better. And by way of doing that, we're able to then create properties and destinations which are sustainable, which are beautiful, which remain beautiful, which, you know, which still have the resources to survive. Water resources, particularly right now, are one of the largest concern for, you know, several places. And so for like, what are we doing about that? You know, what is the responsibility that we carry as tourism players to, you know, to make sure that, you know, there's enough water, there's enough food, there's enough energy, we're not, you know, hurting the wildlife, we're not hurting the trees, all of that. So that whole thing, it's quite complex, but that's where we believe that sustainable tourism exists. And for us, you know, I'm a parent, but, you know, beyond that, you know, we've been so lucky to be able to have the mobility to now experience these destinations. Generations before us did not have the ability to travel so far and see these unique and beautiful places. I hope that their kids will be able to do that as well. And so that's why I find that it's incredibly important that we invest in this and we pay attention, both through mind and action, towards sustainable tourism.
Lovely, Shruti. You've said a few things which I would like to come back to in the next round. But Vani, thank you so much for your thoughts on that, Shruti. Vani, we've heard you many times and we've seen all the lovely things that you do. But sustainable tourism from your lens, why do you think it is important?
So even before you look at sustainable tourism, if we don't have a lifestyle of mindfulness, I don't think it'll translate when you're a tourist. So I think basically everyone needs to understand that how we live, the impact or the negative impact of our lifestyle, how does it affect, you know, everything, not just the environment, the choices that we make. So I think it starts from there. So there is a urgent need to get every citizen to have it as a practice in an everyday life. Then when you start to travel, then you are again very mindful. So for me, since I got that part of it in my daily routine, my travel has become the most easiest, because whether I go as a tourist or I leave my home, I make sure that I don't generate anything that is single use, because I equip myself wherever I go. So I plan my day. So I think that's what it starts at the smallest level, at your home, as an individual practice. And then, of course, choosing destinations. I wouldn't want to go to a destination that is already, highly visited and a lot of people go there and there's so much pressure on the ecosystem there. So one of the things that I would do is that, and whenever I go and stay in a hotel, make sure that I don't accept any single use, So these are some of the practices that have become a part of my sustainable living, which includes the travel too, which is not very often, but.
Okay, Vani, we all know what you do, but tell us, what was your turning point? When did you start your sustainability journey and how?
Exactly when I understood the impact of my actions. I visited the landfill and of course we formed a team. I think these two are the most crucial parts of my journey. A team is the one which gives you that, the conviction to continue thinking in the same lines and upping the game all the time. And of course, the horrible landfill that we visited, and you were there, Shalini, we all went there in 2009 and 10, and we saw how our actions impact the climate, impact the people who live there in those villages around these landfills. And that changed my life forever. So I would say that everybody should go and visit a landfill. Probably, they will shift
Absolutely.
the way they think, the kind of damage that they're doing to the environment.
Yeah, I remember for 2 days it was very difficult to eat food.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, I purposely did not introduce myself because I was tired of speaking. Your introductions were so long. So to give Shruti a little bit of perspective, why they chose me to host this session. Tourism is close to where I come from. I'm a hotelier by profession, who has now turned into a hospitality educator. I do skilling at grassroots. My motto is to make education available to one and all who don't have access to formal professional colleges, and I give them 100% job placement with high-end hotel chains. I was in Bangalore, but today I live in a beautiful Madikeri in Coorg, and I am part of the SWMRT, the initial team of SWMRT. So that's what brings me onto this platform, and it's wonderful talking to all of you. Coming back to you, Shruti, as a hotelier, what made you pick sustainability as a niche? You could have picked anything. Why did you pick up sustainability as a niche that Tamra wants to focus on?
It's been there since the beginning, actually. So when Tamara was initially conceptualized, we thought that this was the way that we wanted to do this, right? Hospitality can, like you mentioned, it can be done several ways. But for us, truly we felt like this was a, a need, of the hour, that tourism had to be looked at, that hospitality and hotels had to be relooked at in terms of how are we actually creating them and what are we putting out there into the world. Are we creating something which is a positive force on this planet? And so it was there from the initial days. But I also, so the first hotel that we ever built was in Coorg, in fact, it's called the Tamara Coorg, and it's it is located on a 180-acre organic coffee plantation. And this plantation had incredible biodiversity. It had incredible wildlife. And so when you go onto it, you don't, you want to present that as it is. It's not like you want to uproot all of these trees and create some like lush lawns or something like that, and then that is what is presented. It doesn't make sense, right? You want to preserve it as it is, the beauty of it, the sounds of it, which are amazing and overwhelming. That's what you want people to experience, and that's what people are craving to experience today, right? I mean, in the cities, we don't hear sounds like that. We don't breathe air like that. And so when we were conceptualizing the Tamara Coorg and the way that we wanted to construct it, we really believed that, okay, this is the approach that we want to take. And then further on, when we got into operations, we said, okay, let's see how far we can take this, right? This ethos into operating hotels as well. So, we were a hotel from the beginning. We've never used plastic bottles, for instance. We've always had glass bottles in the property that are refilled, and there are glass bottle filling stations in all of our properties, really, up until this point. So, we just questioned it. And also because we weren't traditional hoteliers, we had the mindset to be able to question it. We didn't come with sort of that weight of it. So we looked at everything, and we continue to do so today as well.
Okay, lovely. So now you mentioned, I mean, I'm going to stay with you for a minute more before I move on to Meenakshi. Shruti, I missed thanking you because you're already doing so much in Tamra on sustainability. When I reached out to you, to your group, through a dear friend, Manoj Matthew, we know him for quite some time, you immediately accepted the invite of coming online with SWMRT, unlike a couple of other people, and they are in sustainability space as well. And somebody said, oh, we are already doing enough. It clashes with our niche, what we are already on. So that's something I was taken aback. I was taken aback because you might, yes, in your own cocoon, you are wonderful, you're doing so well. But do you think there is a way to collaborate? There is a way to improve. There is a way to impact others to come on to platform like ours, Shruti?
100%. Oh my gosh, yes. Definitely, right? Because that's how this is actually going to create impact. None of us can do anything. We will, of course, we'll have our individual impact. We'll do our bits, and that's wonderful. But unless we collaborate, unless we come together, share best practices, share insights, spread the word, spread the knowledge. I mean, we're not, we are really in a crisis situation, quite honestly, right? I think I may be a little bit pessimistic, or I may be realistic about what climate change is doing to our planet and what is really going on in the ground. So like you said, you visited the landfills and it stayed with you.
Yeah.
Similarly, I think what I know about what's going on in the world, it stays with me. And I feel like the only way that we can really affect change is by coming together onto each other's platforms, and collaborating in meaningful ways. Otherwise, I mean, what is this about, right? I mean, what we're trying to do is really for the world. It's for everybody. It's not for any one group of people or any one community or place. So yeah, I'm full force, in line for collaboration. And you had mentioned, I mean, I work with the World Economic Forum and the Global Futures Councils, and that's all about bringing, various industries which are related to tourism, for instance, aviation, nonprofit, people that work with the with oceans, bringing everybody onto, the same platform to see if that, can we create can we create some projects or ideas or documentation which can affect change globally.
Okay, so Meenakshi just mentioned her the visit to a forest where she found beer bottles. She just mentioned she discovered a beautiful waterfall, which I'm sure we're going to read about and see pictures on her next blog for the Bangaloreans to travel. So that is the normal reaction from all of us Indians when we enter any tourist destination. I mean, I travel to Bangalore every 15 days because family is still there, and I come to Coorg every 15 days. But the entrance of Coorg I'm not saying Coorg because Tamra is in Coorg, but I'm saying Coorg because I live here and I've tried to find a few things, and therefore I'm bringing Coorg into the conversation. Is the moment you are approaching Kushal Nagar, the moment you are approaching Virajpet or Gonikopa or Siddhapur, that is no man's land. It is no man's land. It doesn't belong to the town municipality. It doesn't belong to the poor villagers, and all garbage, single use, is thrown outside. That's exactly what Meenakshi said. However, now this is what we as Indians are already criticizing. Imagine the impact it has or the impression it gives to a foreigner coming to visit us in our country. Now, I would like you to draw a parallel as to when we visit any tourist destination outside our country, why is it different? I mean, is it the government which is different? Is it the people change? Is it the destination management is different? I would like this question to everybody who would like to go for it first. Vani, you are quiet for some time. Can we go to you and then come back to the others?
I don't know.
What happens?
I think we Indians, it's very difficult to be very judgmental about it. But then it's not about education, I feel. It's more about the awareness. They're not aware that if they use something and just, throw it on the street, it has some impact, there's the municipality which will sweep it off, there's somebody who will take care of it. So people are not willing to take responsibility of anything that they generate, which is littering. That's lacking terribly in most of the people in our country, I feel. I don't know, what would make them or change them to hold back that paper cover and take it home and put it in your bin. We don't even teach that to young children. When they eat the biscuit packet, they just throw or the chocolate wrapper on the road, and the parent is not even telling you can't litter that, you have to pick it up. But this culture is there, when you go out. I mean, I haven't been much out, but definitely it should be there. That's why, and they have more single use than us, right? It should be all around them. It's not happening. Maybe there's the culture, which is imbibed in them from childhood, that you cannot litter.
So, Shruti, would you like to draw a parallel and tell us how are we different in our country and when we go outside, or what are things that are different that we could learn from the others, and maybe we could collaborate and do something?
Yeah, so I think one thing that we don't do very well, and this is a bit of a generalization, but is we don't, especially to kids, we don't market very well. And when I talk about marketing, like I mean like we don't market our heritage, our environment, our land, our forest, our lakes, our everything, right? Our the fact that we have phenomenal wildlife, the fact that we have phenomenal beaches and all of these things, right? I mean, Switzerland is, it was in all these Bollywood movies, and so Indians have flocked there over, the last few decades, and it's pristine. But how come like we don't talk about the amazing mountains that we have, and and all of that, and why don't we take the same amount of pride in it? And I think that's really where the disconnect happens. I feel like we don't have the same sense of pride that we should have. We've talked a little bit about Karnataka, but if I may, Karnataka is one of the most amazing states when you look at it from just a diversity perspective, because we have phenomenal cultural and heritage sites. We have beaches, we have mountains, we have these estates and hill stations. We have, just it's pretty amazing. But why is it that like many of us who live in Bangalore, like we're trying to we're flocking everywhere else? Like why is it that we don't have that same level of pride for what is already there in the state, and why don't we therefore treat it as amazing, right? And I've seen, I met the minister of one of these small little European countries, the tourism minister, a couple of months ago, and you should hear the way she talks about it. She's like, oh, it's tiny. It's this tiny little country, but she's got so much energy and enthusiasm for everything, all the experiences that this little country can bring. And I think about why don't we have that? And I think because we don't teach our children to have that same level of pride, we don't educate them beyond, these are the basic stories. This is the dry history of, what these places are. They don't develop a sense of, I have to take care of this place, and therefore I should not litter, I should not pollute, I should not waste. So I think it's a bit of a disconnect. It's not impossible to fix by any means. I think it's a very doable thing, but it requires energy, and it requires a cooperative effort. One where there's plenty of collaboration.
Lovely, lovely. So, Meenakshi, when you go to these treks or you discover these destinations, initially or even now, are you part of groups? Is there, or are you go as a friends group, or do you go as an individual?
So I and my friend, normally we both of us we just get up on Sunday and we explore wherever possible on Sundays within the say 100 kilometers from Bangalore. So we just start Googling, and wherever we reach, we try to explore whichever betta or mountain we can climb. We do that. If we know it in advance, like it is available on ecotourism websites, we book in advance. Otherwise, we just explore and come back.
Wonderful. Because no, if there are organized treks, I'm sure, I would like to go back to what Shruti said, that Shruti, as a young global leader of the World Economic Forum, she serves as the co-lead for responsible destination workstream of the Global Future Council of Sustainable Tourism. She says that we bring in all stakeholders, the airline, the tour operators, the travel agents, and so on and so forth. And we make a list of what you can do. Am I correct in saying so?
Yes.
Yes.
So a lot of trek organizers also, they have do's and don'ts list. So, the serious trekkers, those who are really into trekking, they all believe in plowing back whatever they find, the waste and all that. They do not litter. They are rarely responsible. But people who treat trekking as an, picnic spot, I'm not, again, as ma'am said, I'm not judging anyone. People, they are all educated people, those who can afford to travel by their own vehicles to certain places and spend some time there, drink beer, drink or eat food and all that. I really fail to understand why the simple logic of bringing your trash back is not, understandable to them. But on a serious note, a serious trekker will never do this. And all these is because of our partners in trekking, or the travel partners, those who organize trek. They have a very clear list on do's and don'ts. They carry their own, in fact, we carry our own vessels. If they have to serve tea and coffee, we take our own mugs, we take our own plates if they give us food or whatever. So uh, there is a responsibility, there is a sense of the responsibility by themselves. So that is taken, organized groups are very well taken care of. It is only the people who travel on their own and they have no idea what is in the store at these places, they are the culprits.
Okay, so Shruti, coming back to when you, on a global level, you're part of this international forum. In India, how can you use, say, your own network, or you can use your own learning from these international forums? And what kind of change on the ground you can bring in the stakeholders?
So, okay. So I guess, I mean, on the international level, there's a lot going on. Like, for instance, in the US, there are tourism councils which exist for looking at sustainable tourism. There's also, like, the certification boards, like the Global Sustainability Tourism Council, GSTC, which has certain standards and things like that which are put out. There's a lot that we can learn from them, right? So these agents are people that have done this for several years. They, of course, there are certain things which are easier in international forums than possibly in domestic. So what I mean,
What are
for
your
instance, like,
roadblocks? How would you compare? What
so
are your roadblocks?
policy making, for instance, right, is a really, I mean, it is difficult everywhere, but they may already have policies in place in certain international markets which are more forward thinking, which are more inclusive when it comes to thinking about sustainability, thinking about net zero, thinking about carbon neutrality, which we don't necessarily have in India. And it's also very difficult to implement in India. Like, so for instance, I'll give you an example of a standard which I found personally to be very difficult to implement. There is something called LEED certification, which is building, green buildings. LEED certification requires that you get most of your materials within a very small radius of your destination. In remote locations like Coorg and Kodaikanal, it is incredibly difficult to be able to capture all the materials that you need for construction within that small radius. There is an Indian equivalent of a green certification, which is called Griha, which is much more, suitable for the Indian context. And so LEED is one that it feeds into Griha in a sense, right? And makes it applicable for the Indian context. And like similarly, there's several things that we can learn from international, by sort of collaborating and build, and coming to these forums to discuss. I'm not too educated on this, but in terms of water system, like when you talk about ocean preservation, especially in like Andaman Nicobar, in the southern Indian Ocean, places like this, I think that there's a quite a lot which is happening abroad in South America and Europe, which also is we're able to build on that and sort of bring that into ensuring that we have our oceans are quite well protected. So it is, there are things that you have to, of course, like, you listen, I think, and you try to connect the dots, and then try to bring things in from these international forums. So what I'm doing, sorry if I can just finish, on the Global Futures Council, what we're doing is we're putting out a 10-step kind of like a cheat sheet. Essentially, it's practical ways in which a destination can be made into a sustainable destination, right? So it includes things like what we've discussed: stakeholder inclusion, heritage preservation, cultural preservation, talking wildlife, all of these things. we're not saying that every destination has to imbibe every single one of those things on day one. It is a process. But I really do think that Indian destinations have the ability, if there are good administrators in place in those destinations, to take one by one and slowly build themselves into more sustainable, responsible destinations.
Great. No, sorry, I was trying to just ask you what were the points, which you answered very well. So, no, see, all of us here are doers, and we say, yes, the change starts with me, whether it's me or my company or my home or my business. In your case, it's your business. But to bring the larger change, we want policy, we want government, we want proactive government officers and everything else. But in SWMRT, we work very closely with the government. They hear the voice of SWMRT, they call us, and they take our professional opinion. And we have found, now in our journey, we have found they are proactive officers, and they are officers who, by the time they understand proactive officers, it's time for their transfers. So we've struggled because we have had to start from zero to explain the problem, and whichever issue that SWMRT works very closely with. So this brings me to the point that we cannot depend on just the government, which happens internationally, which kind of we struggle, that cannot happen here. But as a private hotelier, let me just give you a context on where I'm coming from. Post-COVID, recovery in luxury resorts has been extremely good, phenomenal it has been, and companies have crossed COVID numbers in terms of business. And anywhere you see there is more and more investment in the resort sector, luxury resort sector, or in tier 2 cities where there are hotels coming up very fast. Now, and this is happening in smaller towns. Now, why can't, sorry, I'm addressing you because you're the only hotelier in this chat. It's nothing to do with Shruti. It's nothing to do with Tamra. Why can't hoteliers collaborate and decide, okay, we all are dependent on tourists. We are going to be the educators, or we are going to be the ones who will put in the practices in place, and we will take the lead to bring about the change. Do you think the government would say that no, we will not accept such an offer?
I guess.
See, today, the context I'm coming to.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, one example I'll give you. Today you enter Nilgiris, you don't see a single piece of plastic when you drive into the Nilgiris, right? Not a single shop gives you a plastic.
Even Nainital also. Yeah.
So there are places who are setting the benchmark. And wherever you go, you see the visible change. But however, here in Coorg, there is so much of it. If Bangalore is banning whatever plastic Bangalore is banning, it's coming to the Coorg shops, and then you turn around and say, oh, this has been sent from Bangalore because Bangalore cannot use it. Whether you are talking about the flex printing or you're talking about the black garbage bag, it's all come to Coorg because Bangalore banned it. Now, it's all right for a hotel chain to say, I am sustainable, and everything in my estate is sustainable. There are many, and Tamra is doing, I've been to your property, it is beautiful, biodiversity is amazing. But what happens just outside the gate? Why the average tourist is not being stopped? So I'm saying that we, all of us together, and tell us how SWMRT can be of help, or there are members like Hasiruddallah Innovations, there's Sahas Zero Waste, all of them are members, and they'll be very happy to collaborate to make a destination eco-friendly.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you touched on it well. I think, so Tamra, for instance, we've been going on a drive to get rid of all of our single-use plastics for the last year, and we're pretty close. I think we're about 80 to 90% there. We have a little bit left. The thing that interestingly has made us even get to that point, I have to say, is because of collaboration with our vendors, right? So like you said, if the ecosystem is supportive of your effort, then everyone changes. So I'll give an example. In Trivandrum, our milk vendor, we went to him saying that, hey, listen, the plastic bags that the milk comes in, this is really bad. Can we look at an alternative? And so he himself bought the metal canisters, the canisters, and he supplies us milk in his own canisters. And so what I'm assuming is then he's able to do that for several other hotels. But it's because he and we were aligned, right? He understood why we were doing this, why it's important, why we had come to him and spoken to him about it. So if we can bring about that education and the alignment within an ecosystem, it's a pretty amazing thing, because the ripple effect can be quite significant. Why can't it be done? There's no good reason why it can't be done, right? Why collaboration can't happen? There's no good reason. There's of course friendly competition in all of these destinations, but that's really not the point, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, we are mostly aligned. I don't think anyone is disaligned on this. We are aligned, saying that we have to all be sustainable players. I think that everybody takes it at a different level of priority, though, right? So Tamara keeps it at an extremely high priority. Others, in the destination may not. They may prioritize something else. So it's, there's no good reason why, Shalini. Like, we can do it. We have to bring people to the table. And if SWMRT is the person, the team that can bring us all to the table and have these discussions, we're more than happy to share our knowledge and our experiences in this, right? And finally, I have to say, for us, the journey, one of the things that I always tell hoteliers in terms of selling sustainability is that it's actually very profitable to be sustainable, right? If you just think about it in economic terms, if you don't care about anything else, just think about it from an economic perspective, and you start with the basics. I typically say, I don't start with single-use plastics. I typically start with energy and water and waste. If you reduce your energy consumption, you're saving money. If you reduce your water consumption, you're saving money. If you're recycling your water, even better, right? Because then you're reusing it. You don't have you're reducing it even more. And if you're reducing your waste, it's less of a hassle. And your biological waste, of course, you can convert it and then use it, as part of your land, your fertilization and everything. So I start there, and that itself is actually a big hurdle to get past, I have to say. But if people are willing to collaborate and willing to listen, there's definitely a space for this. Like-minded individuals have already come together, I will say, right? And that's how these councils, this is why the councils exist. But in specific destinations, where unlike, for instance, the Maldives, where there's visibly a crisis, it is a bit more difficult to bring people together, I would say, at this point.
Lovely. You said, yes, at the end of the day, you are competing against each other. But then you touched upon another point, which I would like to bring back to the table. You're saying we don't market ourselves enough. If the entire destination markets itself as sustainable and green, and what it is visible on the ground, then definitely everybody will gain. Everybody will gain with that kind of marketing. We say it with pride that we as a destination is sustainable. We shouldn't be saying we as a resort is sustainable. We as a destination. That's something we need to get to. Yes. So before I move any further on, I think, Mina, we have another guest in waiting, Gaurav, who will be coming and joining us shortly. So Meenakshi, before you sign off on this panel, what are your any final thoughts, or which is the new destination that you're going to be giving us a sneak peek on Tanha Dil Traveler soon?
Well, it will be a trek again. The trek, so as you know, I mainly focus on treks which a 40+ woman can easily do it. So I always look at, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And there is this little hesitation amongst the women who are above 40 that, how do I start? Where do I start? So my focus is always my little soft corner for them. So it's going to be another
Shruti, you
trek.
don't qualify. Shruti, you don't qualify. This is only for us.
So it's going to be a destination, yes, which is very doable, and women like us can do it easily.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Meenakshi, for joining in today's live session. And we look forward to reading about your destinations and your lovely journey. And let's see, with our aching knees, if we can get a little motivated and join you on your next
Absolutely,
trek.
you can, definitely you can. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Shalini.
much.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
ma'am. Thank you,
Meenakshi. Thank you,
Shruti.
Meenakshi.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
So while Gaurav comes in, Meenakshi, you have spoken to Shruti on earlier forums as well. Are there any inputs from you that you would like to put in front of Shruti
Oh, you're asking
on
me?
influencing? Yeah,
You're
no,
asking
no.
me?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, Shruti, I have seen, what kind of culture that you have, in your business, and it's amazing that you're being, but very few of y'all are there. And what is the messaging that you would, put out where more people pick up this kind of, niche kind of, destinations where they are running the destinations, and more people get it that wherever we go, this is the culture that is around. So how do you scale this up by example? You're leading by example. So
Yes.
what kind of scaling can happen, and how easy or how difficult is that?
I mean, it is difficult, right? I think, I sometimes, I compare this to sometimes, like when we talk about women's issues as well, we often only see women in the room. And I find that can be a really, we're just, what do you call it? Preaching to the choir, right? We're not going beyond that. And with sustainability as well, I often find that we're kind of talking to the same people over and over again. We all have drank the Kool-Aid. We all know why this is important, but what are we doing to get out there and really to create a much wider net, I guess, of people who are imbibed in it. So one of the things that I am thinking about today is really about how to get young hoteliers to be more conscious about the concept of sustainability and why it's important, and then for them to then grow into the industry and for them to go there into their various directions and for them to take that message with them. That's something that we're thinking about and really playing with right now in terms of how we can create that impact. And beyond that, I think we're also trying to show that sustainable organizations can be very profitable and successful, right? And by traditional metrics as well. And I think that is really important to prove, because in the past, when you thought about sustainable tourism, we were only talking about eco resorts, these really small little lodges and places like that. And I think it's important to show that you can actually implement sustainability at scale in even business hotels or even in mid-segment hotels. And so to kind of widen that and show by example that, hey, listen, these are not mutually exclusive things, right? Being sustainable, being responsible is not exclusive to being successful from a profitability or revenue perspective. And so I think that's where we are sort of in our journey. But there are, of course, organizations who have done this longer than us and are putting out, for instance, sustainability reports, which are really impactful in terms of showcasing data on what they've done and how that's really impacted. And so I think there's a lot of stuff which is happening. There's a huge amount of renewed focus on the area because of COVID and because of climate change. And so I'm hoping that in hotel conferences, for instance, it becomes a little bit more than just like a tiny little side panel, and it becomes more of an area of focus for the industry at large.
Amazing.
Wonderful. On that note, Vani, let's welcome Gaurav Sharma. Gaurav Sharma is a 3-time CEO, 2 times TEDx speaker, startup mentor, and a social entrepreneur. As a CEO and happiness head of Thank You, his company is called Thank You. He envisions to create sustainable waste management solutions which are easy to use, fully automatic, affordable, and environmentally sustainable. We are not going to build a future with heaps of waste around, and yes, that's what we are discussing. Gaurav believes we envision to live in a waste-free world. He's also being appreciated for his efforts as Trashman of Rajasthan. We were all very Karnataka, Karnataka. So now here comes a man from Rajasthan. He is based in Jaipur for his work in the field of sustainability. So Gaurav, welcome to this Insta Live session.
Thank you very much.
And sorry, we couldn't have you on earlier because Insta allows only 4. Otherwise, we would have had you earlier as well. So I will not ask you what sustainability means to you because you are already doing so much. Let's jump into Rajasthan. So Jaipur is a hub of the tourism industry, and how do you see Jaipur changing over the years, and what you think still needs to be done, Gaurav?
Sure. So I think in order to answer this, I would say definitely in terms of tourism point of view, there are a lot of people moving in and out. Talking hospitality, I would say it's also very popular. I would say wedding destination, especially for a lot of people as well. Thirdly, also from the perspective of, let's say, education industry, Jaipur also offers a lot for engineering and other discipline programs. So considering that, I would say there are also a lot of people who are moving in and out of the city every now and then. And what I mean by this is that they also bring a lot of their own practices, be it culture, be it sustainability, and other areas. So if I talk about being very specific, coming to sustainability, there has been lot been done, and I would say there has been not lot has been done. What I mean by this is that one major bottleneck is the change of government, and what I mean with this is that every 5 years there is a constant shift between, let's say, two bigger political parties here, and that changes a lot focus areas. That is one. Second, considering now, let's say, there is always kind of a rebel behavior when you think from, let's say, state government and central government, if there are two different parties leading it. So obviously the initiatives even are meant for better good, not implemented that quicker, or there has been little resistance in terms of implementation. So I would say, even if you talk about solid waste management 2016 rules, that has not been imposed properly as well. So infrastructure wise, I would say still a lot of issues. Door-to-door collection is still not efficient. And then from the hotel point of view, because I majorly work with a lot of hotels, they opt out for composting solution, they opt out for biomethanation solution and all of that, but still they are just there, they are not using it. So I think awareness is there, but call to action is still missing from my point of view.
Gaurav, coming back to, you mentioned Jaipur is a major wedding destination, and of course it's a tourist destination. And you say you work closely with hotels. Now, tell us, since today's topic is reducing disposables, for large hotel chains in the luxury sector, when they handle large banquets, large weddings, do they still continue to use single use? If yes, are they not? Does it not clash with their sustainability policy, or where do you think this is going, or are they being able to move to more sustainable options?
So I would say, from my point of view, I would say again, sustainability is kind of a privilege. What I mean by that is that people with bigger brands can afford it, because somehow the affordability or the pricing is still a bigger debate which is going on. So now, if I look at from the different lens, I would say people with a bigger brand value, like if you talk about bigger hotel groups or chains which has more credibility out there in terms of brand visibility, they are obviously, they're quick adopters, because they know that, okay, if something goes wrong, they are going to be impacted a lot more in terms of brand visibility. So I would say those are the ones who are quick adopters, and they have done it very, very efficiently. But still, looking at, I would say, tier 2, tier 3, or tier 4 hotel chains, there is still a bigger bottleneck in terms of infrastructure, in terms of affordability. Recently, I think there's one big media event happened here in Fairmont itself. And talking about it, I was approached by a couple of agencies just a day before for managing single-use plastic in terms of taking care of it. So I think the bigger problem is the value, the entire supply chain missing, or you can say the way, let's say, Bangalore has done it or NCR has done it is far better. Still, most of the waste from Jaipur goes to NCR or let's say UP or Punjab. Only paper is one industry which has been recycled here. So, in order to avoid, I mean, bring the profitability in the value chain, usually people end up landfilling it. So, yeah, I mean, I've also been to landfills just like Vani, and I think I can relate what exactly the scenario is. A lot of people actually move out there, and I've seen small kids walking on landfills where there are fires around because of, let's say, maybe some coal came in and things like that. So I would say very horrible scenarios, but we really need to, I mean, bring out people who can actually bring in different aspects of infrastructure in order to make things much more efficient and faster.
Thanks, Gaurav. Gaurav, we have been discussing something which I think you have a different perspective, and I was waiting for you to come online to answer that question. You recently went backpacking in Thailand. And as an Indian tourist backpacking in Thailand, how would you like to draw a parallel to what we see in India?
So I think one thing which clearly comes to my mind is that so there are different challenges when you travel across islands because they have their own issues in terms of, let's say, infrastructure or accessibility. Now, considering that, one thing which I really enjoyed is that when I was hopping from one island to another island, uh, so if you take up any kind of diving tour and things like that, they induct you properly. So they take you through the impact happens due to use of plastic or you littering around. Second, they also educate you in terms of how to ensure that you're not leaving anything behind if you're moving around. And the third good aspect is that all their boats are equipped with uh, paper cups and other alternatives, which are super, I would say, environment friendly. So I think the bigger impact which I feel that I personally had while traveling was that it is not just the words. I mean, it is not just, let's say, a marketing creative being pasted there. It is the kind of engagement they're building with the audience. So I'm assuming that uh, it happens with a lot of us. So a lot of us go abroad, and especially, let's say, you talk about developed countries. There is a very sudden change of behavior or in terms of our actions because we know that there's going to be heavy imposed fine if you're going to litter around it. So it is somehow humans are driven by incentives. So I would say either you have to create a strong positive incentive where you show people that the kind of impact they can create and the kind of change of landscape can happen, or it is going to be a negative incentive where there are fines and there are like heavy fines which kind of drive people to adopt quickly. So according to me, I think one just before you go, so I think one thing which clearly I recalled while they were inducting that I thought that I think this is something which is needed in India, especially now. Goa is one touristic destination where people are going very often, especially post COVID. I mean, I could see a lot of my friends traveling post COVID, I would say. So it is very important that a lot of small organizations or even people who would like to innovate or would like to get into the industry, they can actually figure out their own ways of getting into waste management, maybe by adapting sustainable practices or being a partner with these organizations to take the financial load of them.
Okay, so I wanted this thought to come back to Shruti because Shruti is been so positive throughout this conversation that she's willing to collaborate. She's willing to look at any solutions to make a larger, help make a change on the ground. So Shruti, like internationally, briefings can happen before the eco-sensitive destinations take tourists. Why can't, I know they are, each one of you are competing against each other, but in sustainability is really not competing. Can you look at, say for example, I'm coming back to Coorg because this is where I live, and this is where I see a lot can be done, and I have gone up to the DC level to see what we can do, and all they say is that we don't have money. So whether it is visibility of instructions or eco-sensitive or places near waterfall or historical temples or wherever it is, can there be some kind of a collaborative effort from hoteliers, the large hoteliers, to help show a change on the ground?
See, Shani, I mean, I think collaboration can happen. And I would not say, I think, if I look at Kodaikanal, which is where we have our other, one of our other Tamara resorts, I see that in Kodaikanal, everybody works together very cohesively to make
Yes.
sure that there is preservation, right? It's there as sort of a mandate and has always been there as a mandate since before we even got there,
Came here.
And so
Yeah.
single-use plastic was banned far before. Over tourism to some extent is not as much of a concern as it is in some of the other hill stations. So in Coorg, I mean, there's definitely space to do more. We can also, one of the things I think with some of these destinations, we can take a lot of learning from what Bhutan has done. And in Bhutan, there's a very clear mandate saying that we are focused on this idea of bringing in high value to these destinations. But what happens as a result of that is it becomes a less of an inclusive place, right? In that sense that you don't then have, for instance, backpackers coming through. You don't, the homestays and things like that. They may not get the kind of business that you want. So it's quite complex, right? The whole thing, and it really does require sort of mediated conversations between all of the stakeholders. It really cannot be only driven by the hotels. I think hotels are certainly an incredibly powerful part of this because they bring in a lot of economy to these destinations, but it has to be hotels, it's got to be these local community members, it's got to be the local panchayats, the local administrator. Everybody has to come together onto the table to have these conversations of what it is that they're willing to do, and honestly have very frank conversations of what they're willing to sacrifice in order for that to become a possibility. And I think that's where it has been very, very difficult, right? Nobody wants to sacrifice. And especially, I will say, post-COVID, some of these conversations have become harder because everyone, we all went through that, right? And business, of course, tourism, you're right, luxury resorts kicked back much faster, but everyone went through a pretty tumultuous and stressful time during that period of time. So it's needed. It's certainly something which should be happening and can possibly happen, but it has to be a very, like I said, it's not about one group of people. It has to be a bringing together of all of these people so that there is alignment, and we're not sort of pulling against each other.
Yeah. So our listeners, there's a question coming in from our listener, and one of the questions which is coming in is exactly what the conversation that we've been hovering around. He says that if you have any time, please speak about this. Is there any program to educate to avoid single-use plastic in villages? That I'm experiencing more and more villages are being dumped, and they are being given as more long-term, sustainable options, which they are not. So what I was trying to steer, I know it is not the responsibility of a luxury resort, but in a tourist destination, there are very many stakeholders. Yes, there are not too many travel operators, and airlines don't exist. So main are the luxury resorts and of course the government, and the government changes so fast. We just heard Gaurav talk about that. So villages, Vani, you have traveled a lot into villages and you've seen what we are doing to our villages. Either we are making our landfill in the villages, or we are telling them it is fine to drink tea out of paper cups. They used to never see paper cups earlier. So, Vani, would you like to take that question? Then I'll bring you on to the next question. We'll try and take as many questions which are coming up on our session. Vani, over to you.
Yeah, the convenience has, everybody wants to have it very convenient. So it has reached to the, remotest place. Sachets of shampoo, you have coconut oil in small sachets of 20 grams or something like that. So plastic, single-use bottles everywhere, So I went to a hotel and I asked him, do you have drinking water? He says, no, filter water. I said, what do you people drink? The staff, what do you all drink? He refused to, say, because he's afraid to give that, and if I fall sick, I may blame it on the hotel. So I think it's so much easier for them to have single use at every level, be it a city, a district, or a village. It's there all over. So I don't know. Basically, we need to create more, policies to make sure we ban these completely, so that people go back to days when we never had any of these. We were thriving then. We were so sustainable. So it is just the convenience that has got into all our DNA now. It's so easy and convenient to use them. Yeah.
Okay. So, I had a recent experience about this asking for RO water, and it was Udaipur. So Udaipur has a lot of small hotels, and being part of the industry, I know the restaurant stewards are given a target that they have to sell, push for bottled water, and they do get intense incentives on that. So I asked, he said, no, RO water will be hot. I said, no, it's all right. I'll drink hot water, but I don't want room temperature bottled water as well. So there is a suggestion coming up. Okay, before we are soon coming to the close of this session, but I just want to remind our viewers that this particular video will be saved on our channel. You can go back. Those of you who have gone offline and had to go away on Sunday evening, you can come back and listen to this conversation. And our website is swmrt.com, and all our such videos, such talks with such great people from the industry on various topics is saved on our handle on both Facebook and Insta Live. So there is a wonderful suggestion coming in from one of our listeners, Shruti. They say to everybody, for religious destinations, the temple trust should be taken into confidence, and along with government authorities, strict guidelines from the main priest will change the society. So yes, of course, whatever convinces people to change, we could look at changing that as well. So yes, Kuke Subramaniam, I recently visited that place as well, and outside it is a mess. You travel by train outside the station, it is an absolute mess. So I will just see if there are any more questions. And Shruti, to just give you a little bit more about SWMRT, that you have promised. I mean, I love the enthusiasm. I think it is because of your belief in sustainability. Vani, your garden is beautiful. Belief in sustainability or whatever it is, we will come back to you. We will come back to you, and we will take you up on your word. And maybe with you leading, at least we will try and get some hoteliers on a similar, like-minded people on a similar platform, and let's see if we can get some commitment from anybody. Okay, so it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful to have all of you and sparing your Sunday evening with us on SWMRT. Shruti, thank you so much. It's truly been a pleasure having you and talking to you.
You as well. Thank you.
Vani? Yeah. Thank you. Vani, wonderful, Vani, to have you join all over again. And it's always a pleasure. And I look forward to hearing comments about how the session went on our SWMRT Insta Live channel. Gaurav, very soon I'll be in Rajasthan again, and I would love to hear and see what you're doing on the ground. So see you soon in Rajasthan. It's been wonderful to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shalini. You are an amazing host. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.